Hi, everyone. I'm very excited. I'm here with Ignacio Fanlo. They call him Iggy. I would love you to talk to everyone about this absolutely innovative and this concept that is removing massive hoops for anyone running a med spa or thinking of getting into it, or brand new graduates looking to get into practicing right away and balancing that act between their full-time job as a nurse, let's say, and that transition into med spas, and also medical directors in traditional medicine who are considering going over to med spa. That's who we're speaking to today. Please tell me a little bit about yourself, how you got into this, and let's talk about the cloud med spa suites model.
Okay, great. So quickly on me, I spent my first 15 years on Wall Street. I was a managing director at JP and Morgan Stanley. The last role was running all US dollar securitization globally. Um, and I went off to do something on my own. And I looked at technology because I was also an engineer. And I got fascinated with technology. And sure enough, I ended up with the tech company. And we were very lucky. I think we were a little smart, but mostly lucky. And we ended up after 5, 6 years driving hundreds of millions of revenue and going public with Goldman Sachs and then selling the company. Since then, I've done a variety of tech roles as founder or C-level and one other decent outcome. And I'll tell you the origin story. I was watching the Oscars, and this goes back 5 plus years now, and it was an anniversary show. So they were showing clips from 20, 30, 40, 50 years ago. And we were watching with some friends, and people were making some comments, nothing snide, just observations about people's hair and skin and teeth. And you could see it as time went on. Like the bar for what is relevantly aesthetic to our society is a one-way street up. And then at the same time that evening, I saw a bunch of kids taking selfies. And I said, it's going to get way more embedded in our society because my daughter, who's in her 20s now, takes at least 100 times more photos of herself than I did when I was in my 20s. So I just didn't have a selfie capability and I had to develop photographs. It was a pain. It's just like this Zoom call, like you're examining yourself. It's a real critique on yourself. And then if you look at private equity coming from finance, they focused on two things: wellness and this category of skin and aesthetics, as well as pets. Those are the two big categories because they seem to grow no matter what. So I'll jump into the cloud med spa model. When I was looking at aesthetics, I was thinking, what's the wedge in? What's different about this model? I like to do research. Maybe it's my engineering background. And I was poking around. I looked at teeth. I looked at skin. I looked at owning a med spa, blah, blah, blah. And I thought, geez, this is weird, like this relationship. And I went and literally met with med spas all over the Bay Area. And I could see right away that there was this unique dynamic between the customer or the client, if you will, patient, and the provider, the injector technician. And it was a very tight relationship. And I said, oh, that reminds me of personal training and hair care. And then I remembered certainly my wife followed my hairdresser around 5 or 6 different places. And I went and looked at some of the stats. And in the BLS, it showed that even in 2018, it's worse now. 91% of all hair care locations in the US had no employees. They just rented the chair because of what I just said. You had this inherent conflict between the owner and the provider of the service. One was paying for the customer and the other was benefiting from it. And it was like, no, they should be aligned. Alignment is what makes the world go round. And I said we should be able to do that in aesthetics because the same thing's happening and the category is exploding. And it was difficult. There's a lot of legal hurdles. Every state is different. You're dealing in some cases with controlled substances like neurotoxins and the delivery of those products and medical directors. And it's a very complicated solution. And that made it hard for us. But it's everything I have to say. Anytime you overcome a hurdle, you create one for your next competitor. It's the same hurdle they have to cross. So the model is really simple. We started as our own space, and we did it because we really couldn't find people that were willing to test the software. So we said, let's eat our own dog food. Let's open a location where we just rent chairs, give them products at wholesale, and rent devices. And we made an initial pretty sizable investment in the devices and stuff. And we realized this is a hard thing to do for any small med spa. This is brutal. We said, you know what, we're going to take this software. I did a podcast with two or three, I'll call them industry celebrities, Grant Stevens, Terry Ross, Tiffany Hall. And I talked about our model. This goes back about a year and a half ago. That was spring of 2022. And I said, we're going to launch this in January of 2024, the software services based very much on Marriott. And we got calls from dozens of people. How do you know we have these problems? Our biggest problem is HR. This is horrible. We need to change it. And even the big guys I talked to, when I talked to their finance people, and I won't give anybody away, but they were like, they heard about my model. They're like, oh my, we're moving slowly towards you. We're increasing commissions. We're doing this. You're right. We should just go to your model. You're the end point of where we need to go.
Mhm.
We need to turn the business over and let them be LLCs. And there's so many societal trends with gig economy and individual work and entrepreneurship and so many other boring things I could talk about with the reality that remote work has brought it home. Communication and transactions costs are so low. The logic of having large firms and grouping together as opposed to separating, there's very little economic logic for it. We should all be we're back to the future, butcher, baker, candlestick maker.
Mhm.
We can get other people's products. That's super easy and the transactions are low. But we've been already moving towards a super highly focused society. That is like the one trend of society since the cavemen came out. We just specialize and specialize. And then the beauty of it is this model allows owners to be landlords, and you don't have to be an existing owner. This works for an existing med spa owner. We have dentists, we have psychiatrists, we have complete new operators who are like, hey, it's a great way to monetize excess real estate. It's like turning the key, like Airbnb does with your garage above your apartment. This turns real estate into money. And it's a plug and play model. And then maybe more importantly, hopefully we'll help hundreds, if not thousands of owners, but tens of thousands, maybe even 100,000 injectors, a lot of them moms looking for flexibility, for good income. And they get it with this. They can pick their hours. They've got to be consistent and persistent marketers to get their clients. But that's the only thing they do. They bring their skills and they bring their clients. Everything else is taken care of by the owner and our software and services model. So I'll pause there.
Okay, that's great. I have a couple of clarifying questions for you. And just for everyone's sake, this
Yeah.
is the mothership we're talking to. Iggy is the mothership, and you're based in Boston.
Yeah.
So I've been working with clients for years.
Mm.
And what we're running into, especially in certain states that have high restrictions on who can be a medical director, all that, and setting up bank accounts and sweep accounts and contracts and finding a medical director. And then how do I get a job if I don't have experience? There's that problem. And how do I compensate my staff? And what kind of HR rules do I have to follow? Those kinds of things, they just want a treat. A lot of the med spa founders, we have fun during the branding and finding the name, and which we love to do is like that branding stuff, right?
Yeah.
Once you get past that into the legal and the logistics, and now you're an operator, they didn't think about that. That is the pain that I see you're completely taking away. And I didn't
Yeah.
realize until today what you're really doing is even encouraging existing med spa owners to transition into a brand new innovative model of more of that suite where they're the host and they're plugging your model in, and you're
Yeah.
also their built-in guide. And the other thing that came up that I'd love you to address is the buying power, that you've got hundreds and hundreds of practitioners now
Yeah.
around the country,
Yeah.
that buying power, all those things. Please talk about the economics, and I'd
Yeah.
love to hear what are the specific pain points you're taking away.
Yeah. Yeah. The existing ones, it's funny. It's like I was a hair salon and I had barbers I employed, and now I rent the chair. That's pretty simple. You don't need software for that. But if you're doing it with this complex value chain and aesthetics, you need the software to handle all of that. So that's where we come in and the services. The buying power is extraordinary, and we're required by law to not mark it up. So we sell it at the exact price we get invoiced at. So they get a fabulous price. Now, I don't think I can publicly say what our prices are, but suffice it to say that For certain, I'll say more high familiar brand names, the markdown is very low from retail. The ones that are, let's say, not first, but second, third, or fourth, the savings can be 20, 30, 35%. So it's a massive savings, and there's no minimum quantities they need to buy. They don't need to stock up at the end of the quarter and wonder, I've got this money tied up in inventory. We have deals with a handful of energy-based device companies where people can use these machines on a subscription basis. So they don't have to buy them. They don't have to sign a long-term lease. They're like, we're going to put it in, see if it works. And if it works, great, we'll keep it and keep playing the monthly. If it doesn't work, we'll return it. It's like a loaner. And that's the way it should be, because I say that's also alignment. If the product's really good and a lot of people want to use it and the treatment prices are reasonable, then everybody wins. They'll make more money with the subscription and we'll take less risk, and the providers are taking less risk. If it's a kind of pump and dump scheme where it's a high priced item that doesn't, it could be a great product and a great treatment, don't get me wrong, but it's too expensive. The math just doesn't work. And I'm a finance guy, so I'm like, yeah, you get to a certain price point, and then you're like, okay, I got to charge 1,000, 1,500, 2,000 for a treatment. There's just so many people in the world that are going to afford that treatment. So you just can't get enough treatments for the math to work.
In your model, from the practitioner viewpoint, they can just show up if they're a member. Do you call them members? If
Yeah,
there's
member.
so if they're a member, they rent out a room, they can just
Mhm.
show up for an hour. They're responsible for bringing the patient in, but they're pretty much just choosing what inventory they need. They're treating the patient. If they're doing aesthetics treatments with technology, the facility might have some tech there that they can rent by the hour, whatever it might be. And then
Yep.
they lock up and they go. Then they
They
leave.
don't even lock up. They put it's in the sharps box. We clean up. They just
Okay.
leave. They can come back tomorrow. They can come back next month. They can come back never. And they can cancel any time.
Okay.
It's no risk for them, or de minimis risk, I should say.
And you're also helping them, because I hear these questions all the time. Even this morning, I saw an email going out to me that was like, what do you think about this piece of equipment? What do you about think? Because the salespeople come
Yeah.
and they want you to buy equipment. You're also helping with opinions on that front too, correct?
Yeah, I am. We have enough of a purview, we have enough of a view into it that we do help on those opinions. But I would basically say the ones that are advanced enough to use it on a subscription basis, I'd say do it. Like,
Mhm.
even if it's a little expensive, but if they're forcing you to sign a long-term lease or to purchase the equipment, I'm with the mindset, well, why are you doing that? If it's so good, don't you make more money with a subscription? Yeah. And so they're also stuck in their old model of paying heavy commissions. And so they're structurally it's a little structurally difficult for them, to be fair.
Mhm.
It's not the future. The future is, let's align interests. I keep wanting to align interests. Great machine, great service, great treatment. Everybody wins. Expensive machine that nobody treats. We're like angry with each other.
Yeah. So what about logistics? So there's
Sure.
the practitioner who has the just-in-time inventory, right? And
Right.
is just paying what they need. The host of the location, how does inventory and logistics work from the host perspective?
Oh, it's super easy because these vendors, I love them all. Honestly, they're all great on the product side. They all ship basically overnight. They all ship in smaller quantities, a few vials. And I tell people, have enough vials for 3 to 7 days, and or enough product, which is a way tinier amount than normal.
Mhm.
But that's the way I would handle it. It's the best way to reduce your capital costs in terms of inventory. Why have a month or 2 months worth of inventory? You don't need it. It's not like they're shipping it on a ship, an ocean liner across the ocean. They're airmailing it.
I love you.
No, uh,
Thanks, Iggy. Bye.